The frost came in off the fens 3 days before Michaelmas and killed the last of the kitchen garden. Wren Calloway noticed it the way she noticed most inconveniences. She noted it, she calculated what it would cost, and she got on with things. The parsnips were gone. The kale was finished. The turnips she might yet salvage if she dug before the ground locked hard. She went out before the household woke, her apron over her coat, and dug in the dark with a short-handled spade until her knuckles ached and the sky went grey, and the cook came to the kitchen door and called her name in a tone that said she had done something wrong by being useful before breakfast. She had not. She had only done what needed doing. Wren Calloway was the governess at Fenwick House, a position she had held for 2 years and 4 months, which was longer than either of her 2 predecessors. She was 25. She was not rich, she was not beautiful, or she was not the kind of beautiful that rooms remembered. She was the kind of woman people looked past to find the person they had actually come to see, which suited her, because it meant they did not ask her questions she did not want to answer. She had no father. Her mother had been dead 7 years. She had a good plain handwriting, a firm seat on a horse, 3 passable languages, and a cast-iron skillet she had carried from her last post, because the cook there had tried to keep it, and Wren had explained, quietly and without raising her voice, that it was hers and she would be taking it. She taught the Alderton girls. There were 2 of them, Louisa, who was 12 and quick and cruel in the way that clever, unhappy children sometimes are, and Margot, who was 9 and soft and laughed at almost everything, and had once asked Wren whether ducks dreamed. Wren had said she thought they probably did. Margot had seemed satisfied by that. The house itself was a fine one, set on the edge of flat open country, where the light came in long and cold, and the wind moved the sedge-grass in patterns that looked like writing. Wren had been told, when she arrived, that the estate belonged to the girl's uncle, who was away. Away meant London. Away meant Parliament and affairs of state and whatever dukes did when they were not being in possession of large cold houses in the fens. She had not met the man. She expected she would not. That was often the way of it. She did not expect him to matter. If you find yourself glad you stayed for this story, subscribe to the channel. There are more where this one came from. The morning the soldiers came through Holwick village, Wren had walked the girls to the lending library, because Louisa had a book 3 weeks overdue, and Margot wanted something with pictures of horses. It was a market day. The square was loud with it, barrows and crates, and the smell of wet straw, and a man selling eels from a cart. Wren kept one hand loose at her side, and her eyes moving the way her father had taught her before he left, which was the most useful thing he had ever done for her. She saw the soldiers, before she heard them, 4 of them, coming out of the public house on the south end of the square, loud and bright-eyed in the way that means it is still morning, and they are already several measures past sensible. They were not violent men, or not yet. They were young and bored and far from whatever home they had started from, and they had the look of men who had decided the day's entertainment was going to be provided whether the day agreed or not. The village had 1 beggar family. Wren knew them. The mother's name was Croft. She sat most days near the well with her 2 small ones, a girl of perhaps 5, and a boy, perhaps 3, who was not well. He had been not well since the summer, and was not improving. The mother always had the same blanket, always worn at the same corner. She never asked anyone for anything beyond what she set a small wooden bowl out to receive. The 4 soldiers found this interesting. They found it interesting in the way that bored young men, with a quantity of drink in them, find anything stationary and defenceless interesting. They were not going to hurt the children. Wren believed that then, and believes it still. But they were going to make noise over them, and jostle the bowl, and the little boy who was not well was already afraid. She could see his face from 15 feet away, and the mother had gone very still and very inward the way women go when they are calculating odds. Wren handed Louisa the library book. "Do not move from this step," she said. "Either of you." "Wren," Louisa said. "I mean it." She crossed the square. She was not running. It was not the kind of thing you ran toward. You walked toward it steadily, so that you arrived with authority instead of breathlessness. She came up beside the largest of the 4 men, the one who had bent down and was making the kind of face at a frightened 3-year-old that he perhaps imagined was funny. And she said, in the voice she used when Margot was about to do something irreversible, "He is not well. You will step back." The soldier straightened. He was broad across the shoulders, and he had the look of a man who was accustomed to being the largest thing in a given situation. He looked at her the way men like that sometimes look at women like Wren, with a sort of amused disbelief that this is happening. "And who are you, then?" "Someone who has asked you to step back." One of the others laughed. The large one looked around at his companions and seemed to decide that the entertainment had in fact improved. He turned back to her. "Or what?" he said. Wren had the skillet because she had been to the ironmonger before the library to collect it from its sharpening, which was a thing she did every October. It was in a cloth bag over her left arm. She had not planned what happened next, or she had not planned it in the sense of calculating it in advance. The calculation happened the way all her calculations happened, quickly, completely, and without much ceremony. She brought the skillet out of the bag, and she hit him with the flat of it across his left ear and the side of his jaw. He went down. He did not go down in a dramatic way. He went down the way large, heavy things go down, when struck correctly, all at once and with no warning. He sat on the cobblestones with his hand over his ear and an expression of pure bewildered injury, and the other 3 stood very still. Wren looked at them. They decided, individually and together, that this was not the entertainment they had been looking for. The square was very quiet. Then someone laughed, a short, helpless sound. Then someone else. Then the eels man said something Wren did not catch, and the whole square went up, and the large soldier pulled himself to his feet, and went, with considerable dignity, back the way he had come, and the other 3 went with him without being asked. Wren put the skillet back in its cloth bag. She crouched down in front of the little boy, who had stopped crying because he was too surprised to cry, and she said, "He's gone. He won't come back." Then she looked at his mother. The woman was looking at her with an expression Wren could not quite name. Not gratitude exactly. Recognition, maybe. "He needs warm," Wren said. She meant the boy. She fished in her coat pocket and found what she had there, which was 2 shillings and a farthing. It was most of what she had until Thursday. She put it in the wooden bowl and stood up before the woman could say anything. She did not want to be thanked. She never did. It embarrassed her, because she had not done anything a person ought to be thanked for. She had only done what the situation required of a person who happened to be standing in it. She collected the girls from the library step. Margot had seen everything. Her eyes were very wide. "You hit that man," Margot said. "He was frightening a sick child. With the skillet. It was to hand." Margot thought about this for a moment with the complete seriousness she brought to all important questions. Then she said, Could I learn to do that? No, Wren said. Pick your book and let's go home. She did not know then that someone else had seen it all. She did not know that a man had been standing in the doorway of the solicitor's office on the far side of the square, which had a clear line of sight to the well, and that he had watched the whole of it from beginning to end. She did not know he had arrived in the village that morning, under a name that was not his own, travelling without the staff and the horses and the forerunners that would have announced him for what he was. She did not know that when she walked back across the square with the book-bag and the skillet, and a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, he had watched her go and stood there for a moment more after she had turned the corner. She did not know his name was Alderton. She did not know he was the Duke. The house was called Fenwick, and he had owned it for 4 years, since his brother died. He did not love it. He had loved it when it belonged to his brother, who had laughed more often than any man had a right to, and had married a woman who laughed nearly as much, and then left 2 daughters, and this house, and the title and everything else, to a younger brother, who had not wanted any of it. He managed it because it required managing. He had hired the governess by letter, on the recommendation of the girl's old nurse. He had not thought much about the hiring, except that the nurse's judgment was sound, and the girls needed someone. He had not expected to come home. He had not expected to come home like this, either, quietly, without announcement, under his secretary's surname, wanting to see what the house was like when it did not know he was coming. He had done this before, at his other properties, and he had found it instructive. He found what people were actually like. He found who turned out the ill servants, and who quietly doubled the coal order, and who was kind to the girl's mother's dog, which was old and inconvenient, and which everyone had explained at length that they tolerated. He had not expected to arrive in the village on a market day, and witness a governess with a skillet drop a soldier twice her weight, and then crouch down in front of a frightened child, and speak quietly, and spend what looked like everything she had in her pocket. He had not expected to stand in a doorway for somewhat longer than was strictly necessary, watching the corner where she had gone. He did not examine the reason for that. His name, the name he used when he was being a duke, was Cassius Alderton, and he had a hard face and tired eyes of a dark amber colour, that people sometimes described as gold when they were trying to be complimentary, and which were actually, in most lights, just brown. He had broken his nose once, a long time ago, in a situation he was not proud of and had not repeated. He was 31. He had been engaged once to a woman who had wept with exquisite frequency, and who had been, he later discovered, systematically cruel to every servant in her mother's house when she thought no one was looking. He had broken the engagement and been the villain of the story for 18 months, and then the woman had married a lord twice her age for his house in Italy, and that had been the end of it. Except that he had not forgotten what he had learned, that what a person did when they thought no one of consequence was watching was the only true account of their character. Every other version was a performance. He had been watching for something like that ever since. He had not expected to find it across a woman with a skillet and 2 shillings, and a look of pure embarrassment when the mother tried to thank her. He had the solicitor's business finished by noon. He told his secretary to go ahead. He walked to Fenwick House. Mrs. Holt was the housekeeper, and had been the housekeeper since the house belonged to his brother. She was 61, short, and managed the distinction between warmth and sentiment the way a good cook manages the distinction between simmering and boiling, entirely and without making a fuss about it. When he arrived unannounced at the kitchen door, she looked at him as though he had told her he had walked from the village, which he had. "You could have written," she said. I wanted to see. What did you see? The market. Mrs. Holt had a way of receiving information that suggested she was filing it for later use. She said nothing. She gave him tea and a cold meat pie and told him the girls were at their lessons and would be done at 4. The governess, he said. Miss Calloway. What of her? Tell me about her. Mrs. Holt looked at him for a moment with the expression she used when she was deciding how much to say. Then, she said, she mends things, not just cloth, anything that's broken and wants patience. She taught the girl's dog to walk on a lead again after he went lame last winter, spent 3 weeks at it, never lost her temper once. She reads to Margot at night when the child can't sleep. She sends half her quarterly allowance somewhere she won't discuss. He waited. She is not liked by everyone, Mrs. Holt said. She says what she thinks. People find it forward. Does she say what she thinks to you? Yes, a pause. I find it restful. He finished his tea. He went upstairs by the back passage and did not announce himself to the schoolroom. The door was open. He stood in the corridor, where the angle of the wall would keep him from sight. He could hear Louisa reciting Latin declensions with the flat, reluctant accuracy of a girl who knows the answer and resents that it is being asked of her. He could hear the governess correcting, not the Latin, but the spirit with which it was delivered, in a tone that was neither scolding nor encouraging, but simply honest. You know this. You know it. Do it properly. He could hear Margot drawing, which made a particular sound of pencil on paper, and occasionally humming a bar of something, and stopping when she realised and starting again. He did not go in. He went back downstairs and asked Mrs. Holt to tell the governess he would like to see her at 6. He did not say who he was. This was an oversight he recognised, and did not correct, because correcting it at that point would have required explaining why it needed correcting, and he was not ready for that conversation. Wren had been told a gentleman from the estate solicitor's office had arrived and wished to speak with her. She assumed it was about the roof of the east wing, which had been leaking since August, and which she had written about twice to the estate office in London. She brought her copy of the letters because she was not a woman who went to a meeting without her documentation. She came into the study at 6, and found a man standing by the window with a hard face and tired brown eyes, and the posture of a man who was accustomed to rooms waiting for him rather than the other way round. He turned when she came in. He looked at her the way that people who are watching for something look when they find it, very still, very attentive, as though they do not want to move in case it goes. Miss Calloway, he said. Yes, she set her folder of letters on the desk. If this is about the east wing roof, I have the correspondence with me. I wrote in August and again in September, and was told both times that the matter was under review. The ceiling in the 3rd bedroom has now developed a second area of damage, and I would like to understand when the review is expected to conclude. He looked at the folder. Then he looked at her. Sit down, he said. It is not about the roof. She sat. He sat across from her. There was a fire. The room smelled of old paper and beeswax, and something cold from outdoors. The fens coming through somewhere. She waited. She was good at waiting. She did not fill silences to make herself more comfortable. I was in the village this morning, he said. She said nothing. I saw what happened at the market, by the well. She looked at him with an expression that was entirely neutral. The soldiers were frightening a sick child, she said. The situation wanted addressing. You spent your own money. I had it. It was most of what you had. She was quiet for a moment. Did Mrs. Holt tell you that? No. She looked at the fire. She was not embarrassed exactly. She was the way people are when someone has seen something they did not intend to be seen doing. Not because it was wrong, but because it was private. It was 2 shillings, she said. I will not be ruined by 2 shillings. The boy, the one who is not well. Tom Croft. She said it without hesitation because she knew the name. She knew both their names. He has had a chest complaint since June. He needs warm and he needs a doctor. His mother has neither. The man looked at her for a long moment. The fire popped. Somewhere outside a rook called once and was quiet. I will see to it, he said. Wren looked at him. He meant it. She could hear that he meant it. She did not know why a man from the solicitor's office would see to a beggar child's doctor. Who are you? She said. He did not answer that. Not then. Your east wing roof, he said instead. I will also see to that. He stood. The meeting was apparently concluded. Wren picked up her folder of letters because she had not needed them, and she did not leave things behind. Thank you, she said, because she was not rude. Thank you, he said. It came out different from how she expected. It had the sound of a thing he meant in a way she had not yet been given the information to understand. She went back upstairs and told Margot to stop trying to read under the blanket and go to sleep. She thought about the man with the brown eyes. She thought about him for rather longer than was warranted by a meeting about a roof. 3 days later, a doctor arrived at the Croft family's lodgings. He came without being sent for, which is to say he had been sent for by someone, but that someone had asked not to be named. Wren heard this from the woman at the lending library, who had heard it from the miller's wife. She heard that the doctor had come twice, that the boy was improving, and that coal had been delivered to the lodgings at some point in the night, again without a name attached. She thought about the man. 2 mornings later she saw him across the hall, talking to Mrs. Holt in the low, serious way of 2 people who have known each other a long time. He looked up when she appeared at the top of the stair. He did not look away. She came down the stair, and he said good morning, in a tone that suggested he had been waiting to say it. She said good morning back. That was all that passed between them for 4 days. He was there at dinner, at the table, with the girls. Margot immediately tried to make him laugh, with some success, which surprised Wren. Louisa watched him with the testing wariness she extended to all new things. He answered Louisa's sharpest questions with a precision that made the girl blink and recalibrate. He cut Margot's meat when her hands were occupied with gesturing about something, without commenting on it, without being asked. Wren watched his hands. They were quiet hands, certain. On the 5th day he came to the schoolroom doorway in the afternoon and said, "Miss Calloway, will you walk?" Louisa's head came up with the antenna accuracy of a girl who stores information for later. Wren said yes. They walked along the north edge of the property, where the land was flat, and the light came in long over the sedge. It was cold and clear. The sky was the colour of pewter at the far edge, and bright, clean blue directly above, and the grasses moved in the wind with that writing motion. She walked, and he walked beside her, and for a while neither of them said anything, because walking in cold air is its own sufficient activity. "You were a clergyman's daughter," he said at last. "Before, my father was a schoolmaster. Before he left." She said it plainly because it was plain fact. "He walked out when I was 17. I have not heard from him since, which is in many respects a convenience." He absorbed this without the pity she usually braced for. "And you preferred that to staying home. I preferred useful to uncertain, she said. I am good at children. Children are honest. They tell you what they want, and they don't want to want it, and they are afraid of things they can't name. I understand all of that. He walked. He was almost always thinking. She could see it, a quality of attention that stayed even when the surface was still. What is it, she said, that you are deciding? He looked at her. His expression shifted in the way that a man's does when he has been caught being observed. Whether to say something. Then say it or don't, she said. I won't wait for you to decide, and then resent me for asking. He stopped walking. She stopped. My name is not Renford, he said. Renford was the name he had given. She had not liked it, she realized now, because it had not sat right on him. No, she said. I thought not. He told her his name. He told her the rest of it, the title, the estate, the fact of his travelling incognito, the reason, which he gave simply and without making it into more than it was. He wanted to see what the house was like when it did not know he was coming. He had done it before. He had not expected the market. She was quiet for a moment. The wind moved the grass. You knew who I was, she said. At the meeting. Yes, and you had already sent the doctor. Yes, before you knew anything about me other than what you had seen. Yes, a pause. That was all I needed to know. She thought about this. She was not a woman who rushed to conclusions, or who allowed flattery to cloud her accounting. She thought about 2 shillings, and a man watching from a doorway, and a doctor arriving without a name, and coal in the night without a note. You have done this before, she said. This particular thing. The quiet sending. When the situation wants addressing. He said it with a small, precise echo of her own words, and she saw then what was under the hard face, a dry, careful, almost unwilling warmth that did not know what to do with itself when there was no task requiring it. She started walking again. He walked with her. Thank you, she said, for Tom Croft. Thank you, he said, and this time she understood what he was thanking her for. They walked back to the house. The winter settled in. He stayed. This was unusual, Mrs. Holt said, with the careful neutrality of a woman who has an opinion and is choosing where to put it, that the Duke generally went back to London by October. He did not go back to London. He managed the estate from the study. He appeared at meals. He attended, with increasing frequency, to the business of knowing what was happening in the house. The roof was repaired, which took 3 weeks, and a great deal of cold wind, and 4 men on scaffolding. He arranged, quietly and without announcement, for the east wing bedroom to be replastered when the roof was sealed. He sent a second doctor to Tom Croft. He paid the rent on the Croft family lodgings through to March. None of this came with a name attached. Wren found out about the rent in December, from Mrs. Holt, who told her because Mrs. Holt was a woman who understood that some information was not idle, and should not be kept idle. He asked me not to say who sent it, Mrs. Holt said, so I am telling you instead of no one. Which is different. Wren looked at the fire for a long time. He does this, she said, not a question. He has done it for years, Mrs. Holt said. Quietly, never wants to be thanked. Makes him uncomfortable. A pause. He is not comfortable with much, your Graces, but he is not a cold man. He is careful about where he puts his warmth is all. Wren thought about the rent. She thought about it for a week. She thought about it while she taught Louisa irregular verbs, and while she walked Margot's dog in the flat morning light, and while she sat in the study in the evenings, which had become a habit, both of them on opposite sides of the fireplace, with their reading or their letters, not always talking, often just present. It was on one of these evenings that she heard the horse. Then she heard the voice. The voice belonged to Cassius's cousin, a woman named Imelda Waverley, who arrived 3 days before Christmas without a letter. She had a tall hat and a cold way of entering a room and a laugh that was 3 practised beats, like a bell struck at the wrong moment. She had heard her cousin was at Fenwick unexpectedly. She had, apparently, opinions about this. Wren met her in the hall the morning after she arrived. This was unavoidable. The hall was small, and they were both in it. Imelda Waverley looked at her. She did not look at her the way most people looked at Wren, which was to say, without retention. She looked at her with the focused assessment of a woman cataloguing a threat she has not yet classified. "The governess," she said. "Miss Calloway," Wren said. Yes, Imelda's eyes moved from Wren's hands to her coat, to her face and back. "I expected someone older." "I am happy to be a disappointment," Wren said. The 3 beat laugh. "Cousin Cassius says you are capable. He did not say you were amusing. He says very little that is not accurate." Imelda smiled the way that expensive things smile when they have not been polished recently. "No, he doesn't, does he? It is one of his less convenient qualities." She pulled her gloves on, one careful finger at a time. "He will be coming back to London in January, of course. Parliament. He can't stay out here in this weather nursing a pair of orphans indefinitely. I believe," Wren said carefully, "that is his Grace's decision to make." "Oh, quite," the smile again. "I do hope you've not made yourself too comfortable, Miss Calloway." Houses like this have a way of feeling permanent and not being permanent at all. It's a trap for the unwary. She swept out. The door closed behind her. Wren stood in the hall for a moment in the smell of cold air and the woman's perfume, something over-sweet and insistent. She breathed through it. She did not cry. She had learned not to cry where it showed. She put her hand flat on the hall table until it was steady, and then she went upstairs to the schoolroom and began the morning lesson. She was very good at the lesson. She was very focused. Louisa noticed, and for once did not probe it. Margot gave her a picture she had drawn of a horse with a remarkably forgiving eye, and Wren folded it into her pocket without ceremony, which was the only thanks Margot needed. At dinner that evening Imelda sat at Cassius's right and talked about people in London and houses in Bath and the general inconvenience of the country in winter. Wren sat at the far end and ate her dinner and answered when she was spoken to and was not spoken to often. She watched Cassius's face. He was courteous, as he always was. He was not warm in the way he was in the study by the fire. He was very much the Duke, which was a different creature, and she found she did not like it. This was new information. She filed it without comment. The next morning, Imelda found Wren in the kitchen passage. This was the set piece Wren had been expecting, and she had prepared for it in the way she prepared for all things. She had decided what she was not going to do. She was not going to raise her voice. She was not going to give the woman the satisfaction of a reaction that could be told at a dinner party in London. She was going to be very quiet and very steady, and then she was going to go and teach Louisa her Latin. Imelda said, "My cousin is a duke." Wren waited. "A duke," Imelda said, "requires a woman of appropriate standing. You understand that?" "I am not aware," Wren said, "that the Duke has asked me to think about that. He is kind. It is one of his flaws. He is kind to things that are beneath him and does not see that he is being unkind to himself." Her eyes moved to Wren's hands, which were red at the knuckle from the cold, because Wren's gloves had a hole at the left thumb. "You have done well here. You have been very steady and very useful. But Cousin Cassius needs to return to London, and he will return to London, and there are women there of rank and wealth who will suit him in ways that you cannot." She smiled. "This is a country house in winter," she said. "You are a kind of company that country houses produce. He will be grateful for your service to his nieces." Wren looked at her. She thought of Tom Croft in the market square, frightened, and the things that needed addressing. She thought about how you knew when something wanted addressing. You did not always plan it. You only knew you were standing in it. "His Grace," she said quietly, "has never told me what he needs. He has never asked me to think about it. He has never asked me to stay or to go or to be anything other than what I am. I would ask you to consider whether you have that right, and whether he has given it to you." She walked past. She felt Imelda's silence behind her like a weather system. She spent the rest of the morning being very useful and very good at her work, and thinking about London and January and what the Duke might do, left to himself, in either place. The next morning she wrote him a letter. She slid it under the study door before he was up. She told him she believed it might be best for everyone if she gave her notice at the new year. She told him she had been glad of the position and was fond of the girls. She told him she hoped he would do well. She did not tell him the rest of it, because the rest of it was hers, and she had decided not to spend it on a man who was going back to London. She folded her hands in her lap and waited for it to settle. It did not settle. 3 hours later he came to the schoolroom doorway and stood in it and looked at her with the expression she had never seen on him before, which was naked alarm. "Miss Calloway, Your Grace. Step into the hall." She stepped into the hall. He pulled the schoolroom door closed. "I received your letter," he said. "Yes, I would like to know what has happened." She looked at him. She was steady. She had decided to be steady. "I do not think anything has happened that requires explaining," she said. "The arrangement has run its natural course. It is a practical decision." Imelda, it was not a question. She said nothing. He looked at the wall above her head for a moment, which meant he was very angry and was deciding what to do with it. Then he looked at her. "She had no right," he said. "No," Wren said, "she did not." "Then why are you the one leaving?" "Because," she said carefully, "I am trying to be sensible." He said, "I don't want you to be sensible." She had not expected that. She was very still. He said, "Quieter, I want you to stay. But not for the girls, or not only for the girls. I want you to stay because I have been sitting by that fire for 2 months, and I do not know how to read a room without you in it any more. I want you to stay because I have been trying to find the right words for this for 6 weeks, and I have not found them, and I would like to stop looking." She looked at him. She did not answer. She did not answer because she needed to think without his eyes on her. She said, "Let me think." "Yes," he said, simply, "take the time." He went back into the study. She went back into the schoolroom. Margot looked up from her horse-drawing and said nothing, which was the most useful thing she could have done. 2 days passed. Then Imelda left. She left because Cassius had spoken to her, apparently in terms that were very short and very quiet, and did not require repeating. Mrs. Holt told Wren this with the blandly satisfied expression of a woman who has watched a pot come to the right temperature. He sent her to her mother's house in Suffolk, Mrs. Holt said. He told her that if she found the country inconvenient, London was an excellent place to spend the winter. Wren said nothing. He also, Mrs. Holt said, looking at the fire with great interest, has spent the last 4 years quietly paying the pension of a woman in his last housekeeper's village. The woman's husband worked this estate 30 years ago, and was owed money at his death that the estate did not pay promptly enough. He found the record. He paid the debt, with interest. He asked me not to say. A pause. He asked me not to say most things. I have been not saying things for 4 years. It becomes tiring. Wren looked at her. He is not a cold man, Mrs., Holt said. No, Wren said, he is not. She found him in the study that evening. He was standing by the window, not doing anything, just standing with his hands in his coat pockets, the way people stand when they are waiting for something to resolve. She closed the door behind her. He turned. I have thought, she said. And? I would like to know the thing you have not said. All of it. She met his eyes. I am asking for the whole account. He crossed the room. He stopped close enough that she could see the firelight on the side of his face. He said, I went to the market that morning because I wanted to see the house without the house seeing me. It is a habit I have, and I am not apologizing for it. I saw you hit that soldier. I saw you spend your last money. I saw you refuse to be thanked for it. He stopped. I have been looking for evidence of good character for a long time. I have looked in places that were better lit and better recommended, and I have found very little. I was not looking for you. I was not expecting you. But what you did that morning, when you thought no one who mattered was watching, was the only test that tells the truth, and you passed it without trying to pass anything. She was very still. I should have told you who I was from the start, he said. I did not, and I am asking your pardon for it. I will not ask you to give it tonight if you need time for that too. She thought about the letter under the door, and the months of fires, and the rent paid without a name, and the doctor sent twice, and a pension for a dead steward's widow, 4 years of it, quietly, without fanfare. You could have told me, she said. Yes, and you did not. No, she breathed in. I am angry about that, she said. I know. Good, she paused. I will forgive you for it, not tonight. But I will. He nodded. Once, she looked at the fire. She thought about Imelda's words about London and country houses and the kind of company they produce. She thought about what she had decided she was not going to let those words take from her. I will not leave, she said. But I will not stay as the governess, or not only as the governess. If I stay, it will be as a person who is spoken to honestly, and who speaks honestly in return. No arrangements, no decisions made on my behalf by anyone else, and no more letters under doors from either of us. He said, Those are fair terms. They are the only terms. He reached out. He took her left hand, the one with the hole in the glove. He drew the glove off, one finger at a time, unhurried. Her hand was cold and red at the knuckle. He held it between both of his. Still, he said, My name is Cassius. You have not used it yet, she said, Cassius. The fire settled. Outside the wind moved across the fens. Yes, she said. That is the only word I needed. They were married in February, which was the Duke's rank making itself felt, a church that had not known it was hosting a wedding until 10 days before, a congregation of mostly tenants and servants, and 2 bewildered members of the local gentry who had been invited at late notice and could not decline. And Margot, who had been given a new dress, and kept reaching up to touch the ribbon in her hair, as though it might have gone. Louisa did not cry. She held herself very straight, and looked at Wren with an expression that was not quite approval, and not quite relief, and was entirely Louisa. Wren thought she understood it perfectly. Mrs. Holt wore her good wool coat, and spent most of the service looking satisfied, which was appropriate. Tom Croft and his mother sat in the third row. The boy was well. He had been well since January, which was when the second doctor's care had taken hold. He sat very straight and looked at everything with the bright, uncomplicated attention of a child who has been frightened and is not frightened any more. 1 year later, in the study, with the snow coming off the fens and the fire high, and the room smelling of old paper and beeswax, and the cold that gets in anyway through old window frames, Wren sat in the chair that had been hers for the better part of 2 years, and her husband sat across from her, and their hands lay on the wide arm between their chairs, laced together. Bare, Louisa was in the schoolroom. She had a new tutor for her Latin, a precise elderly man who had not yet learned that she was testing him. He was passing, so far. Margot was drawing horses. She was always drawing horses. She had drawn one of Wren in profile last week with the skillet in her hand, rendered with a 9-year-old's absolute confidence in proportion, and Wren had folded it into her pocket the way she had folded the first one. The skillet hung on its hook in the kitchen passage. Tom Croft was at the village school, which he had been attending since autumn. Someone had arranged the fees. The arrangement had been made quietly, without a name attached, except that Mrs. Holt had told Wren about it, because Mrs. Holt had grown tired of not saying things. The good ones, Wren thought, do not wait to be watched. They do not wait to be thanked. They do not perform the virtue for an audience, or fold it away against the day it might be useful. They do it when no one is looking, and they do it again, and they ask no one to keep the count. The fire popped once. Cassius's hand tightened around hers. She did not look up. She already knew what she would see. What you do when no one of consequence is watching is not the exception. It is the whole account. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to the channel and come back for the next one. These stories only travel as far as the people who carry them. I would love to know, when Wren walked across that market square with the skillet, she was not thinking about the Duke or anyone watching. What do you think gave her the steadiness to act when no one else in that square did? Leave your answer below. There is another story waiting for you here, and I will see you in it.